Hey guys, it's McKenna and welcome back to WillowTalk. I was really struggling the last few months to commit to a single project for a few reasons. One of them being I was so incredibly overwhelmed by the amount of things I was learning that I didn't even know where to begin, and I had all these ideas swirling through my head, and I just got overwhelmed to the point where I think I felt like I had other things I should focus on. And on top of everything going on in the world, it felt like anytime I came up with something to talk about, it felt like it wasn't important enough. It was trying to overshadow what was going on, or maybe I was just bringing more negativity and more things that needed to change to the table. And the biggest thing was probably the fact that any time I felt like I was ready to talk about something, my biggest problem was, how am I going to get people to care about what I'm talking about? And when I ask myself this question, I think about how silly it is, because my passion, what I continue talking about, is sustainability. And the sustainability affects every human being on this planet, but for some reason, I feel like I can't get people to jump on board with it and understand it. And it's through that and through some of the things I've been learning that I realized sustainability honestly has almost nothing to do with the environment itself, and it has everything to do with people and empathy and compassion. And so before I move any further in my sustainability journey, or in my journey on YouTube, or my journey with you, I want to talk about empathy and compassion and why I believe it is the first and the only beginning step you can take to go anywhere with sustainability. So I decided to begin with the good old-fashioned definition of what it is I'm even talking about. So what is empathy? Empathy is the ability to recognize, understand, and share the thoughts and feelings of another person, animal, or fictional character. I really want to emphasize that this definition does not only talk about people, but even what I thought was more interesting was that empathy also includes fictional characters and things you read about. And another thing that should be known about empathy is a lot of people believe that some people just don't have it. Some people are just not considerate of others or their feelings. But empathy can be learned. It's not genetic. It can be trained. It can be taught. And so today I want to talk about some ways that we can teach ourselves to be more empathetic, and in that way we can create a bigger change. I want to first establish the difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion, because there are three different things, but they're all very interrelated and commonly used with each other. Sympathy is when you care, but you're not feeling you're not feeling the other person's emotions. You care for them and you want good for them, but you're not putting yourself in that situation. Empathy is when you feel those feelings, when you see someone hurt and you feel hurt in yourself. You're not just, oh, I hope they get better. You feel it in your heart and you're in yourself that you want better for them. But it's not always a negatively connotated emotion. Sometimes it's when you see someone happy and you get a surge of happiness in yourself because you're delighted with yourself to see that. Compassion is taking action to your empathy. Compassion is when you feel something so deeply for the other person that you take action to help them. I think, per usual, it's important for me to highlight why empathy is important. And again, empathy is something that affects all of our lives, and it's something that is important because it affects everyone around you as well when you have it. And even if you don't have it, it's going to affect others, because empathy affects our relationships. It affects our relationships in our day-to-day lives, but also in our work. It's important for our relationships because it allows you to have a more valuable conversation, allows you to understand your partner better, but not just your partner, your friendships or your parents or your siblings. You're better able to understand their view of the world, which allows you to understand their feeling and better understand them, and that creates a better communication. It creates a better common ground to move forward and solve conflict. One of the most interesting things I found, though, while learning about empathy was how important it is in the workplace, which after reading everything, I realized, wow, common sense is important in the workplace. An interesting study I found, though, was from the Consortium of Research on Emotional Intelligence in Organizations. They found that there was a correlation between empathy and increased sales, high-performing managers of product development, and increased performance in highly diverse teams. What I found from this, based off my research, was just that when you have more empathy in the workplace, people are more happy to be there, people want to work harder, and people want to do more. So it would make sense that in a diverse workforce, people are more empathetic. When people are more empathetic, they're more able to understand each other, so they're better able to communicate, they're better able to share their ideas and get things done, which would in turn increase sales, because people also want to work harder when they feel heard and when they feel like they're working with someone. You will have a better understanding of how your coworkers or customers feel, which allows you to implement practices or certain things that would help improve the mood in the work environment and for your customers to be happier as well. You're also able to see more clearly how you affect others, which was really almost eye-opening for me, because when you're able to see how you affect others, it kind of shifts your brain into a place where you're more conscious of your actions and you're more conscious of others' feelings, and it allows, again, a more positive work environment to be in, because you want better for the people around you, because it also means they'll be better to you. Conflict is easier to handle because you're better to understand people's motivations and fears, and again, you're more able to find a middle ground and able to solve and come to a resolution. You're more able to anticipate another person's reaction as well, so that makes it easier to solve a problem, because when you can anticipate the reaction, you can already start to come up with a solution or be more prepared for a better and more thoughtful response. And overall, empathy is important to the world and more closely to my heart to sustainability, because empathy leads to compassion, and compassion leads to action. And when you have action, you have change and you have improvement. And that when we make change and we have compassion for others and we take that call to action in sustainability, it provides a greater quality of life for all of us. And that is one of the biggest things I've learned in the last few months, is how sustainability is so much more than the earth itself, and it's about changing people's lives first, and in return you have a better environment, because we're creating a better quality of life for people and the world around us. There's more on that later, but just a little sneak peek. Now that we know empathy is, and we understand why it's important, because I feel like from everything I've listed, why would you not want to be a more empathetic person? It just seems like a happier life to me. I think it's time to finally talk about some ways to be more empathetic and how to train ourselves to be more empathetic. And this isn't something that comes easily, especially if you're someone who really isn't that empathetic. And it doesn't make you a bad person, it just means you haven't been exposed to understanding other people's feelings. So I have 8 different ways that we can teach ourselves to be more empathetic, starting with reading. For I was so surprised by this, that reading fiction actually can improve our empathy. And it's because when we read fiction, we insert ourselves into this different world and to understand the characters and their dynamics and understanding how that world works. And when you do that, you're training your brain to understand other people's feelings and emotions and motivations for their actions. So I love that, because reading is so important, but it's not only like you have to read a bunch of facts and statistics and do all this research to be more empathetic. You can just read good old-fashioned fiction books and explore a different world. To listen more and talk less, and when you do talk, to ask more questions. When you're more present and you're giving people all of your undivided attention, you're being more empathetic because you're stopping caring about all these thoughts and all the things you're distracted by yourself, and giving someone your full attention to allow yourself to take in what they're saying and what they're feeling. And if you are having a conversation where you have more time to go back and forth, try asking more questions instead of saying, oh, that's just like me, or oh, that's just like the time when I. ask them more questions. Maybe what you're thinking is actually much more different than what they're saying, and even if it is close, maybe they would appreciate the attention of you being interested in their story more than your own. Pay attention to nonverbal communication more often. Again, this just means you're being more present, you're paying attention to a person, and to be honest, sometimes nonverbal communication says more than the actual words that they're saying, because even if someone's talking to you, if you read their communication, maybe their nonverbal communication, maybe they're telling you they don't really feel like talking right now. So that's another important thing to keep in mind. You're better able to read people. Smiling to others is also another way to be more empathetic, because smiles are contagious. And so when you're going out of your way to smile at someone, that automatically kind of lights something, and it makes them want to smile back. And that's just a way to create a more positive environment around you, or just to the least to that one person that day. And I'll say this for myself, even when I go on a walk, I always feel like I should put my head down or something. Like, people don't want to make eye contact, nobody wants to look at you, and even when I do try to look at them to smile, they don't want to look at me. But when people actually take the time to also look at me and smile at me, it does something for me, and it makes me appreciative of the fact that they also wanted to smile at me as much as I did to them. Those accomplishments. One of the most frustrating things in the world for me is this whole mentality of every man for himself, and that everything is a competition, and if somebody else wins, it means you're losing. But just because somebody else is doing good does not mean it's taking you down. And I think it's really important to recognize people's accomplishments and feel for them and be happy for them and with them, rather than getting down that you weren't in the same position that they were. And I know in the workplace especially, this is really, really big. And I have an example is that I recently had done a presentation about implementing more sustainable practices in our store. And, of course, the people in the meeting told me I did a good job, and everyone clapped like you normally would. But it was actually one person who outside of the meeting stepped aside to me and said, McKenna, that presentation looked really good. Did you do that all by yourself? I really liked. And then he showed, told me about the specific part he liked. And to me, I carried that with me all day. And I think about it now because it made me so happy that it at least struck him. If I did anything in that room, I struck at least one person that he was really impressed by my presentation and liked it so much. And when he did like it so much, it meant he paid more attention to what I was talking about. And so truly recognizing people's accomplishments, truly letting them know specific things that they do that are good and why you're proud of them or why that was a great thing, is better than just good job, because maybe you just feel obligated to say good job. Have deeper conversations with people. Again, giving people the time, not just doing the basic, hi, how are ya? Well, you said you were taking a trip. How did that go? Or where did you go? Blah, 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 blah. Did you do anything fun this weekend? And asking them continuous questions. And again, that might seem surface material, but maybe once you get more into the conversation, you go a little bit deeper into it, but without completely interjecting and asking someone about their personal life, because not everybody wants to talk about that. You can kind of work your way in, but having deeper conversations with people, it's kind of surprising when you're having a conversation with someone and they ask you a more deeper question or more personal one, and you almost are taken off guard by it, like you actually want to know. So, and again, that's not only making the other person happier, but it's allowing you to be more empathetic, because now you're understanding someone else's worldview and you might actually learn something. Making an effort to better understand others, and that's the whole point of empathy, is making an effort that even if you disagree with someone, even if they have different beliefs than you, and maybe you're struggling to understand them, take the time. Try to learn about them. Even if it's not someone you personally know, it's someone you found on the internet, try to understand why they are the way they are. Being more empathetic is going to give you, it's freeing to you, because you may have all this hate towards someone, but then once you learn about them and why they are the way they are, maybe you hate them a little bit less. Maybe you're more interested in them, and maybe you learned something through the process of learning them. My favorite that I added on here was mindfulness meditation is actually proven to make us more compassionate. Mindfulness meditation makes us more compassionate because it's all about looking into ourselves and being more compassionate with ourselves and being present in the moment. And when we do that and we practice it, it better enables us to do it in our lives. And it's been proven that how we treat ourselves is correlated to how we treat others. So when we're able to be more compassionate with ourselves and able to be more present with ourselves in our daily lives, it also allows us to do that with others. Mindfulness meditation also explores interconnectedness and how all these different parts of ourselves work together, or how different emotions can kind of create one big one. Or when you explore your different emotions, you are better able to understand why you're feeling or thinking the way you are. And again, when we discover this interconnectedness in ourselves and explore these different feelings and thoughts in ourselves, it encourages us to do it outside of ourselves and do it in the world around us. And overall, empathy is important for the world because, more is important.